Blockbuster trades are what we're talking about in today's Saints video. Who Dat Nation, welcome into today's edition of Saints Now by Chat Sports. As always, I'm your host, Trace Girouard, and we're going to be breaking down 5 trades that I think the Saints could go and make before the NFL trade deadline on Halloween if they want to go all in and win a Super Bowl in Las Vegas this year. So trade idea number 1, a very familiar face, Hunter Renfrow. We got to talk about it because the Saints offense been bad. Hunter Renfrow hardly being used on the Raiders. And here's my trade idea I cooked up. So I'm going to get Hunter Renfrow. I'm just dishing out a 6th round pick. So in terms of trading for Renfrow, I think that it makes sense because Jakobi Meyers has taken over as the wide receiver 2 for Las Vegas. And with that, Hunter Renfrow's production, his attention, and Jimmy Garoppolo, it's not there. It's just not working for the Raiders and Hunter Renfrow anymore. However, the former quarterback of the Raiders, who is now the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, he's got some familiarity and some really good chemistry with Hunter Renfrow. Said it before and I'll say it again. You ever heard of 3rd and Renfrow? It's a rule that the Raiders lived and died by whenever Carr and Renfrow were together. And in terms of the career production, 249 receptions, 2,681 yards, 17 total touchdowns. And I'm going to be honest, I think that the Saints do have good receiving options. The starting 3 of being Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, as well as A.T. Perry and the other guys that you have on the roster, no longer Traquan Smith. You have a hole, and I think that when you average 15.5 points per game, that's nauseating. I mean, that is just straight up disgraceful. It's disgusting. And I want to say, part of it is on Derek Carr, part of it is on the receivers, part of it is on the offensive line, part of it is on Pete Carmichael with the play calling. So, there's not one person to blame here, but could you imagine the 3 Saints receivers you see on your screen right now and add in Hunter Renfrow? And, of course, these numbers, they're not overwhelming. They're actually pretty underwhelming if you ask me. Chris Olave starting out hot. Rashid Shaheed's playing well. Michael Thomas, he's doing what he can, and he's being pretty consistent at it as well, but the end zone is where the Saints struggle the most. And Hunter Renfrow is a slot guy, so I think that could allow him to be that safety blanket and that security blanket for Derek Carr. And right now, Rashid Shaheed is listed as a slot wide receiver, but when you look at the snap alignment, you see he lined up 15 times in the slot thus far this season. And he's only lined up out wide more at 23 times. So if you were to do this, I think that it actually would make some sense because I think that Shaheed has been stellar on the outside. Whenever you saw that original video in week 1, hey, Shaheed, when I send you to go, when I tell you to get ready to go deep, let's end this thing. Go. You don't do that in the slot. You do that out wide. You send Shaheed deep on a route because he is fast, he'll burn you. But you also still get a true slot receiver in Hunter Renfrow. Now, I like Michael Thomas playing in the slot as well. He's gotten a handful of snaps out there. I believe it's actually 15 as well. And I think that it makes some sense with Michael Thomas because he's a very good contested catch guy. But Hunter Renfrow is a true slot guy, and he can fill that void. And like I said, he could be a safety blanket for number 4. So, guys, don't be lame. If you know that if the Saints made a trade, you're going to want the update. You're going to want the breakdown. So be sure to subscribe and lock us in so that way you don't miss out on the video. And I mentioned this yesterday. We got some good leeway going already. If we get to 21K subs by Sunday, I'm going to wear a suit for the watch party, and I'm going to be dressed to the nines, looking all funky fresh, looking like an absolute stud. My girlfriend really wants me to wear a suit, so if you really want to see me wear a suit as well, hit that sub button. We only need 167, so don't let me down, Who Dat Nation. Let's get to 21K. Now, trade idea number 2 that I have is Jonathan Taylor, and I'm actually really excited to see what y'all have to say about this one. But here's the trade idea that I cooked up for JT. I think you can offer up a 2024 4th-round pick. You don't have a 3rd-round pick in 2024, but you have 2 4th rounds because of comp picks for Marcus Davenport and David Onyemata. And in 2025, offer up your 3rd-round pick as well. And in terms of Jonathan Taylor and why I think that it actually makes some sense, he's going to be activated off the PUP list and play as soon as this week. So he could be ready to go this Sunday. And he is returning to practice this week. That's what the reports are saying. And if you didn't know or if you've been living under a rock, Jonathan Taylor was placed on IR with an ankle injury back in December of 2022. And the rush, the guy is a rushing machine. Jonathan Taylor puts up numbers. In 2021, 1,800 yards. The dude was a stud. In 2020, 1,100 yards, 1,169. Very nice yards. But you see the averages. That's where I really want to focus in here. I like the averages in the touchdowns. 4.5, 5.5, 5.0, 5.1. 4 touchdowns, 18, 11, 33. Like, that's unbelievable. Because this Saints running back group, the Holy Trinity, it ain't real holy. Honestly, it probably needs to go to church for a couple weeks because it's been pretty bad. And again, not all that's on the offense, or not all that's on the running backs. A lot of that is on the offensive line. Alvin Kamara, this is the first game back. So, of course, the number's a little skewed for him. Jamal Williams, he's on IR. I really am upset about that. I think Jamal Williams has the pop. He is an electric player. He scores touchdowns. The Saints just can't get in the end zone. And Kendre Miller, he's had a very limited role because he's been dealing with those injuries. He hasn't been a true RB1. He really only filled in as RB2 a couple of weeks. And my take on it, though, this is something that I think you guys aren't really going to like. If the Saints are done with Kamara, and if they think that Alvin Kamara's career in New Orleans is over after this season, I think that the trade actually makes a lot of sense because Jamal Williams, don't get me wrong, he is a very talented running back. He proved last year with Detroit that he can be a bell cow guy. I also will sit here and say this. I think that the Saints have always had the best offense when they have a little bit of boom, a little bit of zoom. You got the ground, you got the pound. I think that it just makes more sense when you have speed and power. That's just a personal opinion for me, honestly. But I do think that it makes some sense if the Saints do want to move on from Alvin Kamara after this season. AK-41 did say he wants to be a Saint for life, so we'll see what that looks like in terms of the money because at the end of the day, it is a business first, so we got to see what happens. But be honest with me, Saints fans. What's your interest level in trading for a guy like Jonathan Taylor? Scale it for me 1 to 10. 1, not interested whatsoever. Stop talking about this. I almost clicked out of the video. 10, wow, I'm actually pretty interested. I never thought about that, Trace. Maybe Alvin Kamara doesn't come back next year. Maybe the Saints do need a running back 1. Let me know. I'm curious as to what y'all have to say. All right, trade idea number 3. This one, it stinks because really want this one to happen. I really, really wanted this to happen in the preseason, to be quite honest. And it had not been for that Trey Turner injury, I think we would actually be okay on the offensive interior. But I want to go get Kevin Dotson, the offensive guard for the Los Angeles Rams. Go get him for a 4th and a 5th round pick. When Dotson was traded from Pittsburgh to the Rams, that was during the roster cuts portion of the offseason. And they gave him up for like a 4th and a 5th round pick, or like they swapped 5th round picks and a 6th. It was like it was a 4th and a 5th round pick kind of involved. So I think that it would actually be pretty interesting if you go and offer that 4th and 5th. You kind of give him a little bit extra back. But Dotson's playing really good football right now. He's playing stellar football for Los Angeles. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think that they're going to move on from him. And why I bring up Dotson, though, like I said, the interior offensive line has been horrendous. And the 2023 PFF grades for the offensive line for New Orleans, you can see them on your screen. It's pretty bad when you look at Andrews Pete, Eric McCoy, James Harris. Now, obviously, Cesar Ruiz is not in that list, but Kevin Dotson put up PFF grades of an 86.0 overall, a pass blocking grade of 60.8, and a run block grade, are you ready for this? 89.3. That would help out the run game. We just talked about it. That would really do some wonders. But like I said, I don't think the Rams are going to sell on this one. They're playing a lot better than a lot of people initially said that they would. I think that they really found a diamond in the rough with Puka Nacua. The Rams offense, it's actually playing pretty well. The Rams team is playing pretty decently. I don't think that they're going to look to move on from a player that's doing so well, especially on the offensive line. And I'm going to keep it real. Like, I was looking for offensive guards for probably an hour. I was probably just going up and down team rosters. When you have a good offensive guard, teams don't like moving on from him. They pay him really well, and they keep him around for a long time. I just don't think that it's going to be easy to go trade for an interior offensive lineman, which is why in yesterday's video I said, I think you just got to play better. Like, I don't think that there's an immediate fix this season. You got to just be better. But if you can go get a guy like Kevin Dotson, that would be pretty sick. There's also, Garrett Bowles for a tackle position. There's a couple offensive linemen out there who are creating some trade buzz. But what say you, Saints fans? Do you think that the Saints need to trade for an offensive lineman? Type Y for yes, type in for no. Just let me know. And I'm curious as to what y'all think. I personally think that they should try to trade for one, but I don't think that I don't think that they will, just because, like I said, it's hard to move on from an offensive guard when they're playing really well. All right, so trade idea number 4 is coming up here in just 1 second. But before we get to that, I got to give a big shout out to today's presenting sponsor, BetUS. As always, go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code chat125. You see it right there. You get an 125% deposit bonus, meaning you throw down $100, they give you 125 of guacamole to bet with. And hey, you want to talk about some Week 5 odds? F New England, F Mac Jones, F Bill Belichick. The Saints better frickin' win this game. This feels like a must-win for the Saints. So I'm taking the Saints +1. They're not even favorites. That's insane to me. They did just trade for J.C. Jackson, so, that makes their defense a little bit better. But I think that the Saints might walk out of this one victorious. Fingers crossed. But if you want to bet on it, go to chatsports.com/bet, promo code chat125 to take advantage of that deposit bonus. All right, let's talk about trade idea number 4. This one is going to be a little bit of an expensive one. I think this one's probably the most unrealistic, probably the hardest one to pull off, if you ask me. Pat Surtain. That would be fun. Could you imagine Pat Surtain, Marshawn Lattimore, Alontae Taylor? That'd be pretty cool. But what do you do with the Paulson Adebo? You trade them away. You give Denver your 2nd-round pick. You give them next year's 6th-round pick, and then you also give them a cornerback who's still pretty talented. Like, let's call it how it is. Paulson Adebo's a good football player, but he ain't Pat Surtain. He just simply isn't. I mean, 128 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 27 pass breakups, and 6 interceptions in his career. And in the coverage, I mean, it's pretty damn stellar. 58.7 completion percentage allowed. He's only given up 1,000 yards, or 1,112 yards, in 36 games. 8 touchdowns, and a QB rating of 79.7 when targeted. And I do think that Isaac Yiadom has done a really good job of filling in for Paulson Adebo. So I have a little bit of confidence in saying, you know what? Adebo is good, but let's go get somebody great, and then let's keep Yiadom, as a depth guy in case something happens, in case there's injuries. Like I said, could you imagine Pat Surtain and Marshawn Lattimore? I mean, oh my God, that would be unreal. That would be a incredibly dynamic duo on the outside for the Saints defense. I'm going to be honest, I don't know very many teams that would have a better 1-2 CB1, CB2 punch other than Lattimore and Pat Surtain. That would be pretty crazy. I think it's unrealistic, but there's already been a lot of trade history with the Broncos and the Saints, so why not something going in the Saints' favor for once? That'd be pretty cool. And trade idea number 5. You saw him on the thumbnail. It's Danielle frickin' Hunter. I'm so sorry, producer Seeps, that we have to talk about your boy. But I think that if you go offer up a 2024 2nd-round pick, you might be able to get him. And I had to talk to Seeps quite a bit about this one because I was like, realistically, what's it going to take? And he was like, I mean, at this rate, if he keeps playing really, really well, Vikings might be greedy and even ask for a 1st-round pick. But here's kind of some backstory on Hunter. He's agreed to a new 1-year deal, a $17 million contract with the Vikings. So he's only on a 1-year contract right now. Minnesota, they've been bad. They have been really, really bad. They barely beat the Panthers. It took the entire game to just get a lead, it felt like. The Vikings just aren't playing as well as a lot of Vikings fans and a lot of NFL fans assume that they would play at, they're not playing as well as a lot of fans assume that they would. And if they're big time sellers at the trade deadline, I think Danielle Hunter is going to be a very hot commodity. He's going to be the belle of the ball, real ones know. And he does turn 29 years old this season, so he's got some tread on the tires, but he's still, he's done a little bit. But let's take a look at the stats for 2023. So Brian Brzee, he is a massive standout, and I tweeted this out earlier or during the Saints vs. Bucks game. Brian Brzee, the Saints absolutely nailed that pick. And I think that if you get Brian Brzee, Carl Granderson, you got Cam Jordan for a couple more years, but what about after that? Could you imagine Brzee, Granderson, and Hunter in a few years? But right now, the 4 players you see on screen, I mean, look at the production. They all get back. They all get after the quarterback. I want to see the Saints defensive line get more pressure, but what I will say is I think that they've done a solid job so far. They just have to finish the plays. You got to finish on a sack. You got to finish those pressures. I mean, there's multiple plays against the Buccaneers alone. If the Saints would have gotten home on those sacks, they would have been fine. And if you want to win more games, the defensive line has to get more pressure. There's no way around it. The Saints defense has been stellar. That being said, you have to get pressure on the quarterback. You have to finish plays. You have to get home, and you got to do it. There's just no way around it. There's not a cheat code. There's not a cut in a corner. You have to make the quarterback of the opposing team frantic and off their game and throw off kilter, and that is what's going to create more wins for New Orleans. And just final thoughts entirely. Obviously, this isn't like a defensive problem. The defense is what's actually keeping the team together right now. The defense is the glue for New Orleans, as well as the special teams. But I'm going to go ahead and say this. The offense has to score. You have to score points. You cannot go into the rest of the season averaging 15.5 points a game. It's absolutely disgusting. It's foul, to be quite honest. But to be fair to the defense, you can't blow leads either. You can't blow a 17-point lead. You can't blow a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. You can't do that. And if you get pass rushers, if you get better coverage, that will allow that, or that will get rid of that problem. My biggest thing is Mickey Loomis, please, for the love of God, do not throw in the towel on this season. Be greedy at the trade deadline. Go get your guy, move the money around, and make this team better, because I truly do believe this team still has the personnel, it has the players, it has what it takes to turn things around. The coaching has to be better, but I do think that the Saints can be buyers at the deadline. So I'm going to go run through these trades one more time, and I just want you to kind of look on screen. Which trade do you like the most? Is it this Hunter Renfrow one? What about the Jonathan Taylor trade idea? Is it number 2? What about Kevin Dotson from the Rams? I think that would be a big need, fill a big need for the New Orleans, probably the biggest one they have on the team right now. Pat Surtain, go get the best CB duo in the league. Maybe this one's your favorite idea. Or what about getting an absolute dog and getting a homecoming going for Danielle Hunter? Let me know, Saints fans, which trade you like the most. And as always, before we hop on out of here, don't you dare forget to subscribe, because, hey, we're trying to bring you guys content every single day. And the more subs we get, the more content we can put out there. The more studio space we get here at the Chat Sports Studios. It's a hierarchy. We're kind of in the middle. So let's climb to the top, and let's get to 21,000 subs today. Thank you so much, Saints fans. Y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.